All right, so we are starting our Ask the Expert segment today with Auger Hollingsworth. We're taking your calls at 789-6559, extension 2803. You can give us the call. You can send us a question via email, or always get in on the conversation on Facebook. Personal injury is oftentimes that we have Brenda Hollingsworth joining us today. We have Richard Auger also joining us. The combination of Auger Hollingsworth. So it's a pleasure to have the two of you here today. And interesting because each of your backgrounds lend to this exact topic. And unfortunately, we are still on the topic of impaired driving. And especially as the holidays are nearing, as we're heading into more and more festivities, we start to see the increase in the rise in doing this. What should people know? Because there are so many different ways of going about it, from the criminal to the insurance to different aspects of it. It's still prevalent in what we're seeing.
It is. It's remarkable how many cases and calls we get for both criminal and people that have been injured as a result of drinking and driving, especially now, as you say, going into the holiday season. And what people don't realize is, for example, being at a Christmas party, many people think, oh, well, if I have 2 glasses of wine within a certain period of time, I'll be okay. But that's, not always the case. People can be, just marginally over the limit and be charged and have a criminal record as a result, and all of the other consequences that can flow from that. So I guess at the end of the day, the message is don't have anything, don't drive at all if you've had anything to drink, because you can't always necessarily tell if it's safe or not.
There's a lot of people that need to take responsibility in this. While it's the individual, there are also people, whether it's the person at the home or a person serving the drinks at the bar, that there's a follow-up to everybody.
Yeah, so right now in Canada, there hasn't been a case where a homeowner has been responsible for serving alcohol to someone else. There have been cases where it's been tried, but the door is not closed. So you don't want to be the person who serves that last glass of alcohol to someone who goes off and causes something very serious. But bar owners and restaurant owners are held responsible on a regular basis for when people leave their establishment and cause problems on the road. We have lots of cases like that where the person who caused the accident is sued, but so is the bar. So if you own a bar, you know the smart serve rules. You make sure that you enforce them. Don't let people leave your place drunk unless you know they're getting into a taxi or there's a designated driver.
All right, so it's been interesting because over the years we have talked about what happens when you're in a collision, and so I know that we have these checklists that you have in your glove compartment, and you go through this. How different is it though when you're dealing with someone who doesn't have all of their well-being? They're intoxicated, and so how different do things start right off the bat?
Well, you definitely want to make sure the police are on the scene, right? If there is no police attendance at the accident, nobody's getting charged after the fact with impaired driving, or at least it would be very rare. If the person fled the scene, maybe the police would go after them, but generally speaking, even if you're not that seriously injured, if you suspect the person who's hit you is impaired, you want to call the police and you want to make sure you get that license plate, but stay away from the person, right? You don't want to be interacting with an impaired person.
No, and then the first thing, and then once that happens, everything is left to the lawyers and everyone else to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us through how to start the claims. How do we start the process then of having the impaired driving as part of this case? Does it change from just a normal everyday case?
Well, one of the differences is there'll often be a criminal charge, right? So sometimes we have to wait on the civil side while the criminal charge goes through. And Rich can tell you about sort of how that process works.
Yes.
One of the first things that people don't realize automatically, you're at a party and you leave and then you're stopped at a ride program and charged with either over 80 or impaired driving. Immediately the person loses their license for 90 days. Whether or not they're found guilty or whether they're found, not guilty. Either way, it's automatic.
It's automatic, okay.
They're entitled to have a trial after that, and that can take many months to get to trial, but that's automatic 90-day suspension. You can't fight that. There's nothing to say or do about that. It's automatic. So imagine if you're a taxi driver or your livelihood is dependent on driving, you lose your right to continue that employment automatically. And then, of course, you have the right to a trial if you're found guilty. You have a criminal record, you lose your license for at least a year, and many people are, also get a fine. There's an automatic fine. It's not so much the fine, but it's the criminal record and the implications of that. in the long term.
All right, we want to hit on this. I think a lot of people may not be familiar with what happens at that exact moment. So we want to be able to answer your questions. We're going to have more from both Brenda and Richard from Auger Hollingsworth. Give us a call on the air. Send us a question via Facebook, via our email, even on Twitter. We'll be back to answer those questions right after the break.